Welcome to Daily Wisdom, Walking the Path with the Buddha, a podcast shared by David Roylance. This podcast is dedicated to guiding you to completely eliminate the discontent mind and the suffering it causes by attaining enlightenment. Learn and practice the teachings of Gotama Buddha that will guide you to fully attain a peaceful, calm, serene, and content mind with joy. To support this podcast, visit patreon.com/support Buddha or visit buddhadailywisdom.com, where you will discover a full range of courses, retreats, and online learning resources to assist you on the path to enlightenment. Now, here's our teacher to share more.
Sawadee Kap. Hello and welcome to Daily Wisdom, Walking the Path with the Buddha. Today is our group learning program, and I'm going to be sharing with you Chapter 21 of Volume 1 of our book series. This chapter is titled Do No Harm. What is the future of the planet? I'm going to teach this class in a different way than I've done previous classes. So those of you guys that have been attending regularly, you'll see that things are just a little bit different in the way that I'm going to teach our class today. But we'll get to that after our meditation. We start with breathing mindfulness meditation so that you guys have an opportunity to train your mind before class. This really helps you in your journey to enlightenment, but it also helps you in the class because your mind can learn and understand the teachings and retain those better. So I'd like to welcome all of you, whether you're joining for the first time or you're joining regularly, and at the same time invite you to join for our meditation. I'm going to start with some chanting to ease us into the meditation, and you're welcome to join into this chanting if you like. Then there's going to be some guidance to help you during the meditation. Then there'll be a period of time where it's just quiet and we're all meditating together. Then we'll come out of the meditation with some more chanting. And then that's where I'll start today's class. So if you'd like to join for meditation, maybe you'll take a position either seated, lying, or standing. These are 3 positions that work really well for online learning. There is a walking position as well that you're more than welcome to do, but it doesn't usually work so well for online learning. So again, I'm going to start with the chanting, and then I'll come back in with the guidance. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Bhutang Bhagavanang Apivateyami Savakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Bhagava Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno Sakatoro Kavitu Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawa Manusanang Bhutto Bhagavati Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect. Just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you'd like to just establish the breath, a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธมหาเขวาโพตังมหาเขวันหังอภิวาเตมิสวากขาโตมหาเขวตาธัมโมดามังนามาสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหาเขวโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินับโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนับโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนับโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมหาเขวาอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารนังสัมมุโนสกขาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดัมมาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสนังพุทโธภาควาติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, welcome to all of you guys. Nice to see everyone in our class today. Today's class, I'm going to be leading a discussion on chapter 21, where normally what you experience is me actually sharing teachings with you as part of these classes, and then I invite you to learn those, reflect on them, to independently verify them, and practice them. And that's still true about anything that you're doing in your day-to-day life. But this particular chapter, the way I've written it, is it explains to you my thoughts on this particular topic. And if you read it, you'll actually learn what it is that I was sharing in this particular chapter. But rather than me stay here and do what I typically do, which is share with you the Buddha's teachings about what he actually said about any particular topic, instead, what I'm going to do is just turn it over to you guys to have an actual discussion about this particular topic. And I'll share with you some kind of ways that you guys might think about doing this. But first, let me just share this about this particular topic. Sometimes people think about climate change and the condition of our planet as a political issue. In my opinion, it's not a political issue. It's a human issue. It's something that any being that's moving to a higher consciousness and interested in wise decision making that leads to wholesome results or wholesome karma, that we would pay attention to the way that we interact with the planet, because any kinds of decisions that we make, it's going to potentially cause harm or not. I know for me, growing up as a child, and I was getting my first car and things like this, when I was taught to change the oil in the car, I was taught to just dump the old oil in the woods or to dump it in the sewer and things like this. I was taught different things growing up that I later realized in life that were unwise. And now I make decisions very differently than what I did as I was growing up, because as we cultivate wisdom as an individual, we start changing the way we make decisions. And that's what this path is all about. is cultivating wisdom. And then with that wisdom, it informs our decisions and we make decisions in a different way. Well, for many years, over multiple generations, we have been making decisions that have been causing harm to the planet. And as you guys know, that this path is about not causing harm, because whenever we cause harm, that harm comes back to us. And we focus a lot of time talking about not causing harm to living beings, but we can also cause harm to the environment around us, which will then cause harm to living beings. So any individual who might be interested in getting to enlightenment and making wise decisions through wisdom, we would spend a certain amount of time thinking about how we interact with the planet on a day-to-day basis and making sure that we're not causing harm to the planet, because this is just going to cause harm to living beings ultimately. So if you look at the book, chapter 21 in volume 1, you'll see my thoughts in some ideas of better ways to interact with the planet, and that it would be wise for us to pay attention to those kinds of things. But rather than to cover those in detail, I'm going to share them with you at the end of a couple of things that I discovered in preparing this particular chapter in the book that will potentially help you to understand certain aspects of how we can interact with the planet better. But rather than go through that at the beginning, what I would like to do is take an opportunity for all of us to have a discussion and have a talk about the things that maybe we've come in contact with, that we've learned, and that we've now changed the way that we do things. Because I'm sure there's actually things that you guys do on a day-to-day basis that is with thought of ensuring that we're not causing harm to the planet. You're probably already doing things. And if we all have an opportunity to share those things that we're doing, we can walk away from this conversation with having heard some things from other people that maybe we haven't thought about, we haven't considered, and maybe those are new things that we can introduce into our practice where we can make different decisions and experience different results. So where typically what I will do is have a talk where I'm teaching you guys and opening up the questions. Instead, what I'm going to do is just kind of have an open discussion with you guys, where you guys can volunteer to share what are the things that you're currently doing. Maybe you can share 1, 2, 3, or however many you'd like of the things that you're currently doing that is leading to improved results in terms of the health of the planet. If you would like to open up your camera, open up your microphone, raise your hand so that I can call on you, then you'll be able to share your thoughts on this topic, and you'll be able to maybe share a bit about what you're currently doing that is helpful to ensure that we're not causing harm to the planet. So those of you guys in Zoom, if you guys would like to share, all you need to do is raise your hand electronically. And if you'd like to open up your camera, you're more than welcome to, because then we can have a really nice discussion amongst all of us. But if you're not interested in doing that, that's your choice, of course. But if you raise your hand electronically, I'll know that you're interested in sharing, and then I can call on you. For anybody who's in Facebook or YouTube, you're welcome to come into Zoom. You'll see that in the comment section of this video, there's the details for how to log into our Zoom, and you'll be able to come in and have this conversation with us. If you are in Facebook or YouTube and you're not interested in coming into Zoom, but you would still like to participate in our discussion, you can put your thoughts in the comment section about things that you're doing that is helpful for the planet, and I can read that so that we can make that part of the discussion. So if there's anybody who would like to share, either in Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, if you guys would like to volunteer, remember you can just raise your hand electronically in Zoom, or in Facebook or YouTube, you can just put that into the comment section. So it looks like Paul was an individual who raised their hand first, so we'll go ahead with you, Paul.
Hello, David.
Hello there.
Yeah, on this topic, we're becoming more and more aware of the planet and doing things to avoid hurting it. And of course, we're all, as individuals, doing our part for things like recycling and making sure we reuse and so on. But what concerns me is currently in the world, like there seems to be a regression on a political scale away from policies that protect the environment. Here in Canada, for instance, we're going through an election cycle, and in order for one of our parties to be elected, they have dropped what we used to have as a carbon tax, meaning we would be taxed at the gas station, for instance, or if it were other fossil fuels, there was the tax added, with the idea of discouraging using those fuels that hurt the environment. Very unpopular, and so one of our main parties have dropped that tax and saying, if you re-elect us, we will not have that tax in place anymore. And then south of the border in the U.S., where do we start? I mean, basically, the current administration is just doing everything against the environment. Anything that was out there to protect it, they're discarding it. So, I mean, I'm very disillusioned by that, even though I'm doing my part individually too, and I'm very much aware, and my family is very much aware of the planet and the need to do our part on a grander scale, on a countrywide scale. And it's not just North America, it's everywhere. There seems to be a regression. And my comment is simply that it's very disillusioning. I don't know that others feel the same way. I'm sure they do.
Yeah, what I would share here is, as I understand what you're sharing, and that's unfortunate that those things are occurring. For us on this path, we understand that it's our individual decisions that lead to any particular result. And while other people might be making different decisions than what you might be making, Paul, at the end of the day, we can't change those people. We can't force them to do anything, as you know. All we can do is choose for ourselves what would be wise decision making for us and how we could interact with the planet in wiser ways. And if you have some of those things that maybe I think you and your wife live together, and you may even have a adult child living with you, that if there's some things that you're currently doing that you'd like to share with the group, that could be really helpful to share some ideas. And at the grassroots level, each individual choosing to make different decisions, that's where real improvement happens, is at this individual level. Do you have anything that you would like to share that maybe you or your family does? You mentioned recycling, I think, but is there other things that you guys do that are helpful for the planet?
That's, I guess, basically the focus is on recycling. I mean, we have now bins. We notice our neighbors are not doing it, but we're very diligent at making sure that we separate and that all of our garbage is recycled to the full extent of what our collecting system allows. But again, my comment goes back to there seems to be less. There's not the importance that there used to be from a political will, from a nationwide will, a world view of saving the planet, and I find that very disturbing. I mean, of course, we try to influence that, and on an individual basis, we can do these little bits of things, but we've got to address this on a much grander scale if we want to make a difference. And I think that this is what I'd like to mention and discuss, is that I'm sure there's a lot of others on this call who feel the same way, that we do our part, but we have to, as a society, we have to come together and do it in a bigger way, or else we're not going to make a difference. That doing on a grander scale, like the pollution that we're creating from our power plants that are burning fossil fuels, we've got to put a stop to that. We've got to find a way to use electric vehicles and so on and so forth. These are the things that make a much bigger difference than the individual dealing with their little spot in the world. It's got to be done on a much bigger scale for it to make a difference. And there's an urgency. Like the way we're going right now, we're running out of time. Avoid this global warming and so on and so forth. So that's what keeps me up at night. So it's really just a comment, and I don't have a solution, but I'm just throwing it out there for discussion.
Yeah, I understand, Paul, and I understand your concern. So just bringing in some of the teachings of the Buddha here to help in this situation is, I don't worry about the planet. I am concerned about it, and you can have concern without worry. And one of the things that the Buddha is teaching you is to pay attention to your own individual decisions and understanding that we can't control other people's decisions, and we wouldn't even be interested to, because each individual needs to cultivate wisdom on their own. And sometimes we burden ourselves with this obligation to go out into the world and convince other people of other things. And that's not necessarily something that an individual is capable of doing. But I hear what you're saying. I understand what you're saying, and I know where that thought comes from. But at the end of the day, we have a lot of individuals in the world, 8 billion, probably more than that by now, 8 billion that are making individual decisions. And those individuals are going to need to cultivate wisdom and understand wise decision making. And that's what ultimately is going to lead to improvement. And that's what today's topic is about, is what are the individual decisions that we can make that are going to be helpful for our interaction with the planet, rather than trying to figure out a way to go out and convince other people of any particular thing. So
yeah, I get it. That's where you want to steer this, and that's fine. And I'll stop talking.
No, you
But
can
I'm
you
just
can talk.
saying,
You can talk.
I'm just saying, David, that I don't think that's good enough. I mean, and you know me, I'm the skeptic, but I don't think that's good enough. Just do each individual doing their part is not going to save the world. We need to save the world it's an urgent thing we have to do. Like, I mean, if you follow the science, which I do, we're running out of time. And we were going in the right direction as a society, but we seem to be moving away from that. And I think we should work as a group to try to influence policies that are happening in our own countries, in our own region of the world, because just doing it in your backyard is not going to save the world,
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, Paul, and saying that that's not enough is exactly why you worry. I don't worry about these things, because I understand that I don't have the influence or ability to change other people's minds. Each individual person needs to decide for themselves that they're interested in learning and growing and developing. And my role in this society is to share the teachings of the Buddha and help people to understand, to train their mind and how to do that. And if they're interested in doing that, I'm here to help them. And if someone's not interested, then I'm not able to help them. So while a lot of people will think about organizing and getting a group together and going out into the world and influencing policy and creating change and advocating for this and trying to convince people of that, that's not what I know leads to a peaceful and joyful mind and a peaceful and joyful life. But I understand that that's what some people have grown up with, and they think that that is the approach to take. If that's what they choose to do, that's their choice. But I'm just helping you to be able to see that those are the things, and doing it with craving, desire, attachment, that can lead to discontentedness. Now, there is the ability to advocate for improvement in our governmental policies and things like this without craving, desire, attachment. That is a possibility for people to do, but that's not what I do. I'm not a political advisor. I'm not a lobbyist. I'm not someone who influences policy changes and all of those kinds of things. And if there is somebody who does that type of work and they're interested in learning how to do that through the teachings of the Buddha, it is possible to do those things while still not having craving, desire, attachment. But an individual would need to learn how to do that and be interested in doing that. And that's where I would be able to help them learn how to do that. But my role isn't to influence public policy and opinions and things like that.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, so it looks like we have some more people that are looking to share. It looks like Marcy is next. Go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you, Teacher David. So over this course of this journey, I have realized that when you kind of keep the thought of the earth and not causing harm in your mind, even just causing harm to humans, you find little ways to do conservativeness, to save things. So I have a very leaky tub and it leaks constantly. And I have learned that I put buckets under that leaky tub and I accumulate all of this wonderful water that I use to water my plants. And it's been very, very beneficial, and it has actually helped a great deal in watering the plants. Also, this water is very good to use for my drinking water as well because it's just dripping from a faucet. So I have like the Brita filter. So I will use that tub drip water and I pour it into my Brita filter and it filters it out and I get drinking water. So instead of like running water right from the faucet into the Brita, I'm running to the bathroom and I'm waiting for that bucket to fill up and then I just make my water that way. I do the same thing for my animals as well. They have running filtered water. So I just use that water also. The other thing that I had learned is that composting is really great. And when you eat a whole foods diet, a lot of the scraps can be thrown into your compost. So I particularly don't have a compost here where I dwell, but my son has a compost at his house and he works in this area. So like once a week he swings by and he picks up, I save these containers, like any kind of container that may have been used, jars, peanut butter jars and stuff. I clean them out or whatever, and I fill them with compost, and I close the lid, and then he takes them, and then he goes and composts them and uses them for his garden. So that's kind of like just like little tiny things. And then the other thing that we just researched, which we're going to build this year, is how to use runoff rainwater to irrigate his garden. So we found online how you can build these boxes at the end of the spouts that come off of the house, and it fills it, and you put certain things in there like that filter it out, and like natural filters, like you've got soils and stuff like that, leaves, all kinds of stuff that the water will run through and filter, and then you can take it and slowly drip irrigation into your garden, and it saves time. So instead of having to be out there watering, shooting all this water, it's on just a constant drip irrigation, and there's no work to it. You just got to kind of pick the harvest and make sure you scatter for the bugs. But those are some things that I've realized that just even finding like the smallest little thing can turn into really great big help. And I enjoy my conserving the tub drip water. I think that's great, and I do share it with my neighbors as well too. They have Brita filters downstairs, and I'm like, I've got water up here if you guys want it. So we kind of use it that way.
As long as it's not toilet water, Marcy, I think you're okay.
Yeah, no toilet water.
I think shower water. So people are probably accepting of that, but if you start collecting your toilet water, I think you might start having some issues there.
Yeah, for sure. Agreed.
All right. Thank you for sharing. All right. It looks like Ted and/or Kristen have something they'd like to share. Go ahead, guys.
Morning, David, and maybe both of us. Two things. Unfortunately, I don't have a long list of things I'm doing. The first thing that came to mind, and something that drives me crazy, is I don't throw garbage out the car window. Whether it be paper and to see a car in front of me just throw out a McDonald's hamburger carton or just drives me crazy. And I know that's I'm missing the point there, but and we do recycling, and we use low voltage light bulbs, and we try to comply. But I understand what Paul was talking about, that black hole, it seems to me, of getting sucked into why the world is the way it is, and with the greed and the they don't care about the environment. I really wish it would change. And that's such a strong draw to me, and I could fall in that hole pretty easily. And it almost turns to anger of why more people aren't doing things, and they don't give a damn about our children to come and generations to come. And it's a rabbit hole. As opposed to really just focusing on what I could be doing, and trying. I can't change people, nor, although I think much change should come, nor do I have the capacity or the willingness to go out and try to, on a public level, change things. So I think I could just focus on self and try to be the best human being to our planet as possible. And I think that's way more realistic than because I've thought about it for years. I think our planet's a mess, and it's all human created, and greed runs most of it. But it is, unfortunately, it is what it is. And I can only do my part. And I think the more I stay in that mindset, the more effective and more, I hate to use this word, serene I may be. That's it out of me. I think Krista might have something.
Well, I was just thinking about how, like, I try to go to like markets that sell like organic foods and things like that. And then I had a tendency for years to buy food and then not cook it. I would buy all the stuff and then end up throwing it out. So this last year, I've really focused on buying what I need and using it and making sure that it doesn't go to waste. So that's something that I've been working on this last year and trying to eat better. And getting him to eat better has been a challenge, but we're getting there. And I'm also vegetarian, so that's a little bit, I know that's, I guess, better for the environment. That's not even why I do it, really. It's preferred. I never really liked meat, so that wasn't a big challenge for me. But one thing I do, Ted and I also do is we save insects in the house. So we have like a contraption that we kind of made, and anytime that we see any kind of bug, we make sure to get it out safely and not kill it. So that's kind of something that we do too. That's it for me.
Okay, thank you guys. I appreciate you sharing. That's really interesting thoughts there. Thank you for sharing those. Looks like Alberto has some things to share as well. Go ahead, sir.
Hi everyone. I would like to share just 2 or 3 things, or a couple of things that I do, and in a small scale, I try to focus on what I can do myself, and very simple things like, for instance, right now my current living situation, my housing is paid by the university where I work, and but I still turn off the lights, and then when I exit the room, when I leave my apartment, and sometimes my son is like, well, Dad, why do you care so much about turning off lights or turning off the AC or not having the AC so high? And if we don't pay for that, and I say, son, it's not about that. It's about not using resources that we don't need. And I do that mindfully. And also students see that. And also try to buy, not to buy things that I don't need. Like I realized, like going over pictures of my vacations for the last 2 or 3 years, I'm pretty much wearing the same shirts. So I try not to buy things. If something still works, I just don't buy a new thing. And what else I do on a small scale? I'm right now it's interesting because as I was like logging into Zoom, I didn't know what the topic of today was, but I was making myself some coffee here at the hotel room, and they had paper cups, and they also have the regular glasses for water. But I used and I thought, okay, I'm gonna use the glass because the paper cup can be used by someone else later on, the next occupant of the room, and I don't need that, so I'm not gonna be using that paper. So these are things that I do on a small scale, that is that I can control. Also, if I can walk instead of taking the car, as I walk or I use my bicycle. I only drive my car when I need it. If not, I walk. Mm-hmm. And I do it not only for health reasons or because I like it, also about not using resources or energy that I don't need. Okay, these are some ideas on a small scale that I do. And I share the concern that Paul expressed and Ted and Kristen, but at this point, I think the path that we're all learning is helping me not to worry about it. I used to a lot. I still follow the news. I try to support politicians that I think they will be more beneficial for the planet, but I don't know what I can do. What I can do is choose not to use, if I can use glass instead of paper, or turn on or turn off the lights, things like that. That's what I can do. I don't know. These are some basic ideas. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing, Alberto. Looks like Leo has something to share as well. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, thank you, David. Yes, what I also realized is that the path to enlightenment also takes a lot of worry from me for the yeah. So I don't have so much worry for the planet anymore and all the things that are happening. That's really nice. What I could share is that actually in the last time I haven't really thought so much about the environment. Now in the past, it more often I had a view on that. But what I can share is that what I do is in the winter that I try to save electricity, for example, with the heating, so that it's that I'm not all the time using the heater. And which is nice in Germany that mostly we can drink water out from the tap. So I'm also doing that, and I try to avoid, if I remember myself, to avoid plastic. And I think all in all, Germany is quite going forward, giving people the opportunity not to use only have plastic to use. So we have bags with paper, for example, we can use for transportation. So I'm trying to use these these opportunities. But all in all, I think I could still have or could develop more a more bigger view on the topic environment. What I also realized is that what I think also could be helpful to produce not so much destruction for the environment is to maybe live more minimalistic. That's what I like to do. So I don't have so many clothes, don't have too much stuff in my room. That's also something I think could be helpful. That's it.
Yeah, thank you, Leo. Appreciate you sharing that. If there's anyone else who would like to share, you're more than welcome to do that. While you guys are thinking about whether you'd like to share, since a few people have been talking about this, I would like to share that what we're all talking about here is we're talking about the middle way, right? The middle way in terms of the planet. Because on one side of this, we would be worried and upset and frustrated and angry and, these kinds of things. That's one side of it. The other side of it would be to do nothing and could care less about the planet, right? That's two opposite sides of the spectrum. And remember, what the Buddha is teaching us is this middle way, that there's this better way of life of coming to the middle, where we don't worry and we're not upset and frustrated and angry, but we're also not on the other side doing nothing as it relates to ensuring that we have a healthier planet. And what you guys are starting to share is you're starting to share this middle way, is these are the wise decisions that I'm making in order to help to experience improved results in the world through the decisions that I'm making. And that's what it means to practice the middle way. And if you guys remember back to chapter 6, when we talked about the middle way, I explained how that we need to be able to practice the middle way in all aspects of our life, right? So if we were obsessively trying to maintain our house as a pristine environment, that's going to lead to discontentedness. But if we were on the other side where we could care less about our house and we didn't do anything to maintain it, that's not going to produce beneficial results for us either. So there's a middle way in terms of caring for our house. Or if we were on one side of this where we were like spending an exorbitant amount of time with our friends and family because we are holding onto those relationships so tightly, or if we were all the way on the other side where we could care less about other people and we didn't spend time with others, that's not going to be very fulfilling life either. So there's a middle way, right? With each individual topic of our life, there's a middle way. And that's what we're doing on this path to enlightenment, is training our mind, eliminating those 10 fetters, and finding the middle way with each individual topic of concern that we might have. And it's possible to be concerned without worry, right? So this is what you guys are starting to talk about, is this middle way. Here's the wise decisions that I can make on a day-to-day basis in order to lead to improved results in my life and other people's life as it relates to the health of our planet. So I just thought I would point that out for you guys so you can see that that's what you guys are starting to talk about. Because sometimes when we're so used to hearing that, oh, I'm worried about this or I'm worried about that, sometimes people think that that's because of the care and the concern. But that's actually not the care and the concern that produces worry. That's because of the craving, desire, attachment. And when someone might say, well, I'm not really worried about this, someone might think that, oh, that means the person's all the way on the other side, or they're not doing anything at all. Right? And that's not the case. Like you can hear from Leo where he says, I'm not worried about the planet, but obviously he has concern about it. And that's why he's making these decisions to improve the way that he interacts with the planet. And that's the middle way. And you would like to get to that with every single topic of your life. And that's what's going to produce the peace and the joy. That's what's going to produce a harmonious life. That's what's going to produce some improvement in your own individual life. So I thought I would point that out. Is there anyone else who would like to share their thoughts? Okay, it looks like Ted and Kristen have something else. I see there's a bunch of other people here too. If you guys would like to share, you're welcome to raise your hand and I'll be able to call on you.
I'd like to say, especially for Alberto, I have a KISS t-shirt from 1979 that Kristen still wears. So I got you topped. Thanks.
Okay. All right. So let me see if we have anyone else that's sharing or interested to share. Okay, it looks like Paul has something that he's would like to share. Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, okay, so that I'm early on this path, so I'm curious though, how do you go and convert worry into concern? Like I at this point, I find it's hard to even distinguish the two.
Sure.
How can you be concerned and not be worried? I mean, I just don't see how you can separate the two. What's the difference,
Yeah, so when the mind has craving, desire, attachment, when it's longing, yearning, and it's wanting things to be a certain way, that's where it's going to produce the worry. Because of impermanence, things can't be that way all the time. It's just not possible. So as long as the mind has craving, desire, attachment, longing, yearning, there's going to be worry. And worry is a discontent feeling. Right? That's arising because of its craving, desire, attachment. So for example, if your child, the age of, I don't know, say 12, goes out for the first time by themselves and they're crossing the street, you could worry about them because your mind is craving, desire, having attachment, wanting them to always be safe. There's this expectation, this craving for permanence. And now when they go to cross the street, the mind worries about this. That's going to be where the mind is discontent because of its attachment to the child. But we can teach our children how to cross the street wisely, looking both directions, taking their time, things like this, using a crosswalk and so forth. And that's because we have concern. Concern is not a discontent feeling. Concern is a mental state. So these are different things. So worry is the discontentedness that arises because of craving, desire, attachment, where concern is a mental state that we can maintain in all aspects of our life. Like I'm concerned about my son so that I would like to see him make wise decisions in the world. So now I can teach him wisely how to cross the street. And now when he chooses to cross the street, I can observe that. I can go with him a few times. After I've taught him, I can go with him a few times and let him choose when is the right time to cross the street rather than me. And then that gives me confidence that he's learned what he needs to learn so that now he can do this on his own. So it's the same thing with the future of the planet and any kind of environmental things, is that if we have a craving for the planet to be a certain way and we want other people to do things a certain way, then everybody's not going to do it that way. It's just not possible. And we can still have concern for the planet in conversations like this, where people are open to it and people are interested in learning. We can share our thoughts and ideas, and then it's up to those individuals to decide whether or not they would like to adopt those things. And then that's where the concern for the planet can be there, so that now we can make wise choices ourselves and we can share ideas with other people when they're open to it. And this is what will get you away from your worry about the planet, is that you understand that it's not possible for everyone to do things a certain way. Because the information about how we're in this climate crisis, so to speak, has been well disseminated throughout the world, and people have made their choices, right? There are certain people, it sounds like many of us here, who have decided like we would like to make different decisions, and we've looked for ways to do that. Like Alberto just talked about one, just using a glass cup instead of a paper cup. That's just something he did in the moment based on his concern for the planet. So we can make those decisions. But other people, even though this information has been disseminated all throughout the world and people know the world's in a climate crisis, other people are just turning a blind eye to it. And that's because of their own minds craving, their own minds maybe anger or ill will, their own minds lack of wisdom, or this unknowing of true reality, or this ignorance, and they're choosing to not pay attention to it. And it's not only this issue that they might be turning a blind eye to, it can be other issues too. Maybe their relationships are not very harmonious, or maybe they're having difficulties in their profession or their job and things like this. And that's just where they are in their development in terms of what they're experiencing on a day-to-day basis. And it's better for us to not judge them or look down on them or think of them in a certain way or feel like we need to go out and convince them of anything. Because if they were interested in making improved decisions related to the environment, that information is readily available. Us getting out there and holding picket signs or protesting and all these kinds of things, beating drums, this isn't going to change that person's mind because the information is already out there. So you're going to need to, Paul, get to the point where you understand impermanence and you understand that this longing, yearning, and wanting others to be a certain way is only going to lead to frustration, agitation, worry, and things like this. And you do your part and what you can do. Whereas if you burden yourself with going out there and convincing other people, these are people that have already been confronted with those kinds of things, and they're still making unwise decisions as it relates to this topic and many other topics in their life too.
You were mentioning about the spectrum and the objective of being in the middle. I understand that. In my case, for instance, I'm very much not on the do nothing scale. I'm doing my part, and I'm doing much of what was discussed here. Maybe not capturing the water drip from the tub. I'm the kind of guy who will fix that drip before I'll catch the drip. But I do my part. I'm satisfied with what I do, and I'm very conscious of the environment. But on the other end of the spectrum is where I have the problem.
Yeah.
Is my being disturbed by how the rest of the world is going and how. And the other thing I want to say is, you mentioned about picketing. Isn't that what we need? Can you go out and picket, meaning demonstrate in a democracy and not, can you do that and still have and be enlightened? What I mean is that it's not, if we just ignore it, that's not good either. I mean, we should be actively trying to save the world without being attached to it. Isn't that what we should do?
It can be done. Whether somebody chooses to do it is a whole nother topic. If somebody is going to protest or picket, they need to understand what the underlying problem is of why people make unwise decisions. People make unwise decisions because of a lack of wisdom. So if we just go out on the street and picket and we beat our drum and we try to scream and shout and yell and holler, even sometimes those things turn into looting and damaging of personal property and all these kinds of things, that's not going to bring about any change. That is actually, those things sometimes turn into, looting and damaging a personal property. So if somebody is going to choose to protest, what I would advise them to do is to make education part of their protest. So maybe let's just say there's 1 million people that gather in the capital of a country, and now they walk in a march towards a particular location. And now once they get to that location, there's 3, 4, 5 people, who knows how many, maybe even just one, that delivers a very well put together public speech about what their cause is and what it is that they're looking to help people to understand. They need to make education part of the component of their protests. If all it is beating drums, carrying picket signs, and like I mentioned, sometimes those things turn into looting and damaging of personal property, that's not going to produce any kind of improvement. Because if you understand what the underlying problem is in every single human mind that is unenlightened, is it's a lack of wisdom. And you can't get to wisdom by beating drums, by picketing, by damaging personal property. There needs to be some educational component to it. And I think an individual who really exemplifies this type of movement, in my opinion, is a gentleman that we're aware of named Martin Luther King Jr., that during his time, he would do marches and organize marches, and then he would arrive to a certain place and he would deliver a speech that was helping to educate people and helping them to think about things in a different way than they currently think. And that's where you really provide the opportunity for these people who are making decisions in what we might consider to be unwise to now bring on board some new understanding and some new thoughts that they themselves choose to listen to, and they themselves choose to think about, and then they themselves choose to make different decisions. And that would be a wise way to do some type of protest, in my opinion.
Yeah, another name that comes to mind, of course, is Gandhi. And I didn't qualify the protest. I had never thought of anything but non-violent. But yeah, it often goes out of control and becomes violent, and that's the danger of it. But yeah, the other thing, and I'll end here, is just, I've got a lot of work to do on right speech, because I do have a habit of interrupting people. I do it all the time.
Yeah, that's that underlying craving, right? If you have a craving for certain things, you'll jump in and you'll cut people off. So that's okay, Paul. I understand. I love you unconditionally, but just understand that that's the best way to have discussion, is just to give space for each other to talk, and that'll help you to eliminate your craving on a particular topic, that you're not jumping in on people like that.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, it looks like we have some more coming in. Let me read some of the things that are coming in here. Let me see if we have anything on Facebook or YouTube. I see Leo has his hand up with an interest to share some more, but let me just see if we have anything coming in on our other platforms before I get to you, Leo. Okay, it looks like Mayuli has something to share here. Mayuli is saying, things that I do on a regular basis to help the environment are: 1, buy organic when available to support farmers that help preserve the soil and its soil's nutrients for generations to come. 2, reduce, reuse, and recycle. 3, I make homemade when possible to reduce packaged waste, from canning, fermenting, making my own condiments, baking, to milling my own grain for flour, and so on. Preserves, hydroelectricity, and water when possible. I eat whole food and compost when possible. I try to stay away from using plastic when possible. I buy from thrift stores when possible to reduce waste into the landfills. 7, I buy from thrift stores when possible to reduce waste in the landfills. 8, I voted for the Green Party, a political group that are conscious for the environment. Okay, thank you, Mayuli. All right, it looks like Leo has something. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I just thought about going to demonstrate. I just thought about maybe, but for me it seems like that there is some kind of beneficial thing that you make other people understand the importance of that. Because if I imagine if there wouldn't be any demonstration out there in the last years, I don't know, but would the people have give the environment the same importance if there wouldn't have been? You understand what I mean?
Yeah, so the language that we use is very important, because the language that we use is going to dictate the way that our mind functions and the way that we make decisions. So an individual who's making their way to enlightenment, who's progressing towards enlightenment and interested in eliminating craving, desire, attachment, they're not going to try to make people think a different way, because that's the mind now trying to impose its will on others and try to force others to do or think a certain way. Instead, what an individual would do would be to, if they're going to protest, which there's ability to protest without craving, desire, attachment, they would do it in a way that provides the opportunity for people to choose to learn what it is that people are discussing and what they're sharing, and then give them the opportunity to gain more understanding and more wisdom. So that individual is choosing to listen to the topic of a speech, for example. Or as you're maybe walking through the streets, maybe people are handing out pamphlets that have like a bulleted list of educational things to learn about a particular topic. Or people are posting things in Facebook groups or social media groups like Instagram and things like this, and they're helping to educate the public on a particular topic. So the idea of coming together as a people, walking down the street with picket signs and things like this is what we're used to, but you can see that the world isn't really changing. So if we keep doing the things that we've always done before and we're expecting different results, this is really an unwise way to approach things, because continuing to do the same things and expecting different results, people talk about that as a definition of insanity, right? Like it's insane to think that we can keep doing the same things and experience different results. So what I'm sharing here is that there is another way. And if you understand the underlying problem in each individual unenlightened mind is a lack of wisdom, then we understand that if an individual has the interest to organize large numbers of people towards improving any aspect of society, there's going to need to be an educational component to it. And without that educational component, then individuals don't have an opportunity to learn, understand, and make different decisions. It's just a bunch of people walking down the streets, screaming and yelling with picket signs. And as I mentioned, sometimes it turns into damage of personal property. And now it's like, wow, those people, they're doing all these harmful things. And the cause of what they're actually advocating for gets lost in the whole thing, because the news is all about tipping over police cars and breaking windows and damaging local businesses and all this kind of stuff. So there is the ability to organize large groups of people to show how important a particular topic is for a group of people, but there needs to be some amount of education, which is typically missing from modern day protest. And an individual can choose to do these things. And what I was sharing with Paul at the beginning is I'm not that person. I'm not the person who's going to go out there and organize massive numbers of people to march down the street and protest what a government is doing or not doing about the environment. My role in this society is to help people understand these teachings. And if I do that, then that's what is going to help individuals. And there's a component of what I'm doing, a large component, which is helping people to understand wisdom. And I put out advertisements on Facebook or my website or different things like this to invite people in. And then if people choose to come learn, great. And if they choose not to learn, well, that's their choice. But I'm here to help people who are interested and have a sincere willingness to challenge some of the things that they currently think about the world, and then they're looking for a way to train their mind and experience improved results in their life. But out of the people that I teach, I actually have some people who are lobbyists that are students of learning with me, and they are in the USA, they're lobbyists, and they lobby the government for political change. And those individuals are learning how to do that through the teachings of the Buddha and become more successful at what they're doing, rather than maybe the way things have been done in the past. Because if you learn and practice the teachings of the Buddha, whether you're a business person, whether you're an electrician, whether you're a construction worker, a teacher, no matter what you do, whether you're a retired parent, or if you're involved in politics and lobbying and things like this, you will do those things much, much, much better having trained the mind. So I'm not here to say whether someone should or shouldn't protest. That's not what I'm sharing. What I'm sharing is that if someone chooses to do that, then there is a way that they can do that in a wise way that's going to produce real sustainable improvement and results. And doing it without craving, desire, attachment is the first part of that.
I'm completely seeing that it's better to give the people out there information. That makes completely sense. I just thought about that, but for me it seems that still there's some kind of little bit of outcome for me seems like if you demonstrate without putting out all this information, but as you said, that the informations are out there already, right? Everybody knows about the problems in the world and the environment. So for me, it seems like maybe a reminder. If people go out and you see, the person in the TV says 10,000 people come or 1 million people come to demonstrate, I think, wow, it's a lot of people. So maybe it's a big topic. I should have an eye on the environment again. What do you think about that? Or would you say, no, I think it doesn't make any change if you go demonstrate without putting informations out for the people to learn about that?
Yeah, I'm not sharing that demonstrating with large numbers of people doesn't create change or doesn't create improvement. That's not what I'm sharing. What I'm sharing is that if anybody is interested in creating real improvement through protesting, the best way to accomplish that is to have an educational component as part of it, right? So I'm not here sharing one way or the other. I'm not saying you shouldn't do this or you should do that. What I'm saying is if somebody is interested in creating real improvement in society, they're going to need to help people cultivate wisdom. And that's what's really going to produce beneficial results in one's life. So when you guys hear me talk, you might be thinking that I'm sharing one thing or the other, that I'm saying, oh, don't protest because, that's not going to work. That's not what I'm saying. That's black and white. That's an absolute. What I'm sharing is, hey, if you would like to really get the most benefit out of protesting, here's the best way to accomplish that. Based on the natural laws of existence, there needs to be some educational component. And where this comes from is an understanding of what's really going on in the unenlightened mind, which is a lack of wisdom and the unknowing of true reality. And if someone just doesn't understand what they don't understand, then they're going to continue to make unwise decisions. So if someone's interested in getting real results in any particular cause or movement, they're going to need to educate people. So we might say that the movement to helping people get to enlightenment, there's a certain movement here, right? There's a certain grassroots movement that started many years ago, 2,500 years ago, with the Buddha himself. And here we are 2,500 years later with millions and millions and millions of people that are interested in what the Buddha actually taught. And for me, on my individual level, this is what I'm able to do. I'm able to write books and share those into the world. I'm able to turn those into audiobooks. I'm able to create videos and podcasts. I'm able to provide classes, courses, and retreats. I'm able to provide personal guidance. I'm able to do all these things and others in order to help people to understand these teachings. And that's what I'm capable of doing in the world. And that's with a large component of education, because I understand that the reason why the mind is in the unenlightened state is because of its lack of wisdom. So I need to create that ability for people to understand wisdom. Now, if I was interested in people getting to enlightenment and I went out on the street and I just picketed, right? I was like, all these unenlightened beings, you're messing up the world. You're messing up the world. You've got to do it this way and you've got to do it that way. And enlightenment is the best thing since sliced bread. And why isn't more people getting to enlightenment? And I'm just beating a drum out there trying to convince people of this. It's like, whoa, like what's going on with this guy? He's not very peaceful, right? Like, why would I ever be interested in getting to enlightenment when this guy isn't even peaceful, right? He wants us to do something that we're not doing. So that's why you really need to understand that when I'm sharing what I recommend for people is I'm sharing this is the way to make the very best improvement in what it is that you're trying to accomplish. And that's not to say that just going out and organizing, say, 1 million people to walk down the street, letting people know that this is an important cause. It's not to say that that doesn't create any benefit, right? Because there's going to be news stories that are about this and people are going to be interested in this topic. But what I'm saying is the best way to get the most improvement is to make it some part of that, an educational component. And that's what I'm sharing with you guys.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, let me see if we have any other things that are coming in. Okay, I'm not seeing anything else anywhere. So what I'll do is just end by sharing a thank you to all of you guys for sharing. Thank you for sharing your thoughts and ideas and having this discussion. It's always nice to kick back and have these kinds of discussions, because normally it's just me talking and then you guys asking questions. It's nice that you guys opened up your cameras and you interact with each other and talk with each other, because this is a community of people that are interested in seeing improvement in their own life and then also seeing improvement in the world, right? But it's through changing and improving your own life that it will then help to change the world. One of the things that the Buddha talked about is he talked about craving and worry for the world, that's something that needs to be eliminated from the mind. Because as long as we have craving and worry for the world to be a certain way, then we will experience discontentedness within our own mind. If you've read this chapter or you're planning to read this chapter, you'll see the things that I wrote in there. There's two main things that when I was doing research on this chapter, that researchers and scientists and people that are in this field of helping people to understand and get educated about climate change, that they all agreed to that, or not, I shouldn't say they all did, but the vast majority of people agreed that these two things are the top two things that we could do in order to improve the future of our planet. And if each individual person just chose to do these two things, we would see significant improvement to the condition of the planet. The first one that they talked about is moving to a plant-based food supply. That if somebody was interested in moving to a plant-based food supply, this is going to drastically improve the health of our planet. And the reason why is because there's a certain amount of work and effort and resources that go into harvesting animal flesh. And you receive a very small amount of product for a very significant amount of resources that are expended in order to produce meat. So there's been studies done that shows, like, say 1 acre of land can produce, say, 100 pounds of animal meat, where that same acre of land can provide like maybe 25,000 pounds of fruits and vegetables, right? So in terms of experiencing improvement in the way that we use our resources, researchers were sharing that moving to a plant-based food supply would drastically improve the health of the planet, because we would be using our resources more wisely. And then on a side note, we have certain people in the world that are impoverished and that they lack food. And this would also help that, because we would then be able to have more food available. So this was the one thing that they agreed to, and this is right in line with the teachings of the Buddha. This is right in line with the natural law of karma, of what we know of as cause and effect, or action and result. The second thing that they talked about is they talked about ensuring that we don't waste food. That apparently in North America, 40% of all food is wasted, and there's a significant amount of resources that go into wasted food. It's not just the wasted food itself, it's all the things in line that created that. So in order to get food on our table and in the grocery store, there's the farmers going to the store with their gasoline cars, purchasing the seeds or whatever it is that they produce, bring home to their farm, now plant all this stuff, now nurture all these things, now harvest all those things, package all those things, bring them to the market, put them in the market. Now the consumer comes to the store, to the market, purchases all those things, brings those home, prepares them in their own home with the resources there. Then they package them or do whatever else or throw them away. And if 40% of all of that chain of events is wasted, that means we're wasting an enormous amount of resources. So choosing to eat all your food is actually one of the best things that individuals can do. And this is why, if you've seen this chapter, at the very end of this chapter, I put a picture of an empty plate, right? Like I had eaten at a restaurant and the plate was completely empty, and I took a picture of it because I thought it was really beautiful to see this empty plate, that there's no food wasted in this particular meal. And this is very common. You will see here in Thailand in a restaurant, it's very uncommon to see any food left over at the end of a meal. Here they have smaller portions, more moderate portions, and when people order food in restaurants and they eat all their food. It's even pretty rare that people will take food home because all the food gets eaten right there, right now. where sometimes in other places we have these huge, enormous portions that there's no way you can actually eat it in one sitting. And then not only that, but then there's packaging involved in taking the food home in order to eat it later. And then it might even go to waste at that point, right? So the scientists and researchers shared that if we didn't waste food, that this would have a significant improvement to the health of our planet. And these are two individual things that we can choose to do individually. So that's what I would encourage you guys to look at, these two things. If you're not already doing these things, you guys all shared some great ideas and some great things. And even some of the things that I'm sharing now, some of you guys actually shared as well. So these are two things that you can look at in your own personal life if you would like to switch over to a plant-based food supply. Not only will it help the environment, but it'll help the health of your body as well. But of course, you would need to do something like that gradually. And then if you just choose not to waste your food, this is really helpful. But understand that you can't crave permanence in this situation. Even me, as conscious as I am about not wasting food, there's an occasional time where I would throw away some food because it just didn't get eaten in our home, right? So instead of that being a 40% number, it's probably more like a 2 or 3% number in our home. But it is going to happen because of impermanence. And the same thing with eating a plant-based food supply. I predominantly eat plant-based food, but when I travel, there's occasional times where I need to eat cheese or I need to eat eggs or things like this because I'm not at home and I'm not at a place where I have readily available access to all the food supply that I typically have. So if I craved to be vegan, for example, when I'm in these situations, I would have discontentedness. Now, I don't eat meat and I haven't eaten meat for a very long time. That's not something I will choose to do. But I can, do something like eggs or, maybe cheese or yogurt. And I do that every once in a while, like 0.001% of the time, I might be eating those kinds of things. And that's me understanding that I need to have loving kindness and compassion for this being. If I went into an environment where I just didn't eat anything, I would be depleted of my energy. And that's not showing loving kindness and compassion to this being. So there are some situations where I still need to eat those things. And that's understanding impermanence and that you can't even crave or long and yearn to do something like being vegan. So these are all things that you guys can consider as part of what we've talked about today. You'll see more information on this in the book if you decide to read Volume 1, Chapter 21. So this is what I had planned to share with you guys, and thank you again, all of you, for sharing your thoughts and your ideas and having this conversation, because this is where real improvement actually happens, is on an individual basis. So next week, we're going to be in Chapter 22. Chapter 22 is titled Mental Health, a Modern Day Delusion. This is where I'm going to be sharing with you guys some aspects of misunderstanding that we have in the world about mental health concerns, whether it's ADHD, ADD, bipolar, schizophrenia, anorexia, bulimia, things like this. I'm going to help you to understand another perspective on this, that this isn't a brain disorder. This isn't the brain functioning or being defective in its functioning. This is all has to do with training of the mind. You can see where many of the modern day mental health challenges that people are experiencing don't come back to a defect in the brain. It comes back to a lack of training in the mind. And through training of the mind, people can actually experience improvement in those areas. And I know that many societies are really plagued with a lot of challenges in mental health, and a lot of this can all be improved through training of the mind. So I'm going to give you guys some real helpful information so you guys can see this for yourself and independently verify it as well. And then, of course, on Wednesday, I'm going to be doing loving kindness meditation with students and then opening up to any and all questions that you guys have. So you're always welcome to join for that. So thank you again for joining, and perhaps I'll see you guys in one of these future classes. Be well and take care. Sawadee ka.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. To provide support for this podcast, visit patreon.com/support Buddha. To access more teachings, visit buddhadailywisdom.com. There, you will discover a full range of courses, retreats, and online resources to assist you on the path to enlightenment. Remember to establish a daily, consistent meditation practice, along with learning and practicing these teachings. A well-developed meditation practice is the foundation in which to train the mind to attain enlightenment.